Hey, how's it going everyone? So in this video we're going to be making this text animation inside of Blender, and then for these patterns I'm going to be using, I came across this procedural pattern pack on Gumroad. It's pretty cool. You can adjust all the shapes and tiles, and then there's 20 demo patterns to work with. It is listed as free, but I definitely think it's worth it if you have a few extra bucks to spare, so go ahead and check that out. And let's go ahead and get started with the video. So I'm going to come over here to the output properties, and I'm going to change this to 30 frames a second. Come down here and choose where you want your file to be saved to. So I have a folder on my desktop I'm going to save it to for right now. And then I'm sticking with this PNG sequence with the RGBA channel selected because we will be rendering out with transparency enabled. So let's come up to our render settings, and then under film let's check transparent right there. And now let's go ahead and start adding in our text. So I'm going to delete this cube and delete the light. Shift A, add in some text. Come to the top view. Let's go to the text settings and align this on the center for both of these right here. And now I'm going to add in a font that I have saved. And let's go ahead and make two duplicates of this. So Shift D, right click, Shift D, right click to cancel out. And then I'm just going to offset each one just by a little bit. Okay, so for this bottom text, I'm going to open up geometry and I'm going to change the extrude to 0.05. For the middle text, I'm going to change the extrude to 0.03 and change the bevel depth to 0.02. And then for this top text right here, I'm just going to change the extrude to 0.01. Now let's just come in here and adjust these a little bit. So I'm going to bring that down to about right there. Get this top one and bring it down to where it's just sticking out, just like that. All right, that's looking good. I'm going to come back up to the top. And depending on how thick your text is, you're going to want to adjust this character spacing. So let me come down here. And for the text I have, I'm going to choose a character spacing of 1.2, and I'll just do this for all of them real quick. Alright, so right there's looking good. Let me go ahead and select all of these and rotate this on the X by 90, and then I'll just bring it up a little bit like that. Now let's adjust the camera a little bit, so I'm going to hit Alt R and Alt G to clear out the rotation and location, and then I'll just change the rotation on the X to 90 and then bring it back on the Y a little bit. And if we go into our camera view, we can adjust it a little bit more, so I'll do that. Alright, I'll go with about right there. Now let's go ahead and get all the text again and rotate this to get something that we like. And now I'll bring this over on the X just a little bit, just to try to center it out a little bit more. So about right there. Alright, so now I'll go ahead and choose one and then highlight all of them, right click and convert to mesh. And then now we can start to add some materials to these. So I'm going to come down here, I'll select the first text, let me zoom in a little bit, hit new. I'll keep this white. For the second one right here, I'll click new. I'll just change this to a blue for right now. And then for the third, I'll go ahead, hit one more, and I'll give this a black color, just like that. And if we come to the material preview, you can see this is what it's looking like so far. Alright, so go ahead and select all the text again. Let's go into edit mode and hit A to select all, right click, separate by loose parts. So now all of these letters are separated by themselves. So now we can go ahead and join all of these letters together. So right there, I'm gonna join all of these and all of these. And then once again, let's come back here, select all of these, right click and set origin to geometry. Okay, so now I'm going to import one of those materials from that pattern pack. So I'm going to come up here to file and append and go ahead and look for where you have it saved at. For this one, I'm going to choose this circle, triangle, zigzag pattern. Open this up, go to material and append this right there. And then I'm going to make sure I have this white material for this inner text right here selected. I'll open this up and I'll change it to that pattern right there, and I'll do that for all the text real quick. So I'll go ahead, change that and change that. Alright, so right now we can't see anything, so let's come up here to the shading window, and I'm going to change this from UV to camera. So if I come to the camera view real quick, I'm going to take the camera and plug it into the vector. And then what's pretty cool about this is that no matter where I rotate this or move it, that pattern is going to be oriented towards the camera. So I really like the way that looks. And then I'm going to come over here and add in a mix RGB. And I'll place that right here and plug this value into the factor. And then for some of the colors I'm going to be using, I have this Adobe color theme downloaded, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy some of these colors and use them in my scene. So for this first color, I'm just going to choose this off-white like that. And for the color 2, I'm just going to change this to black. And then if you want, you can come over here and adjust the scale if you want for these, but I like the way it's set at default, so I'm going to keep it at 10. And then one more thing I'm going to do is add in a mapping node, and I'm going to place that right there. I'll slide this down a little bit and I'm going to bring up a timeline. So I'll change this to a timeline. Over at frame 0, I'm going to come to this mapping node, and for the location on the X, I'll right click and insert a keyframe. I'll come all the way over to frame 250, and then I'll change this X location to 0.4. Right click, insert keyframe, and then with the keyframe selected, I'll right click, interpolation mode, and choose linear right there. Alright, if I come in here, you can see that if I hit play, that our pattern is actually moving through the text now. I think that looks pretty cool right there. And then something that you could do is, like, if you wanted to mess around with the individual properties for these shapes, like the scaling, rotation, thickness, all that stuff, you can make something pretty cool out of that. But I'm just going to keep my animation like this. I'm going to come back up to the layout window, and let's add in a plane real quick. Rotate this on the X by 90, and let's bring this up on the Y to where it's right in front of our text, and scale this up to fit our scene. We can come into our rendered view, and then let's add in a material and change this to holdout. So anything behind this plane is going to be transparent, and then that's where our text animation is going to come from. So if I bring this down on the Z, I'll bring it down just a little bit below the text like that. And then something I'm going to do real quick is change the color of this dark blue right here. I'm going to change it to something I have on my color palette. I'll change this to an emission, and then I'll paste in that hex code that I have. So now I have this pink color. I like the way that looks. Alright, so let's go ahead and start animating our text. I'm going to come to about frame 60, and I'll select all the text right here, hit I, and then set a keyframe for the location and rotation. I'm going to come up to frame 30. I'm going to grab the first letter here, the T, and I'm going to bring it down on the Z to where it's a little bit below. If I come to the solid view, I'll have a better view. So if I'll bring it just a little bit below like this, hit I, and then set a keyframe for the location and rotation. And then for these animations, I just want them to be 15 frames long. So for the T, I'll come and I'll bring this over to about frame 45. And then I'll have each letter offset by 5 frames. So I'll come to frame 35, grab this E, and bring it down right there. Set my keyframe, and then I'll come to frame 50. Right there. I'll come back to frame 40, grab this X, bring it down on the Z, set my keyframe, come to frame 55, and then drag this keyframe back. And then for the last T right here, I'll go to frame 45, bring this down on the Z, set my keyframe, and then this is good set at frame 60. So now this is the animation that we have. Let's select all of our text right here. And with all these keyframes right here selected, right click, interpolation mode, Bezier. Let's bring this back, and if we go into rendered view, this is our animation so far. It looks nice, but we're just going to add a little bit more motion to it. So let's come down here and change this to the graph editor. I'll bring this up a bit more, and let's select our first text right here, and under the object transform, bring this down, and we're going to add a noise modifier to the Z location and rotation. So go ahead and select the Z location, bring this out, and under modifiers, add in a noise modifier, and for the scale we're going to choose 50, and for the strength we're going to choose 0.04. So now we can see that the letter kind of bobs up and down a little bit like that. And then for the rotation, let's select that and add in a noise modifier. For the scale, it's going to be 80, and then for the strength I'm going to set a 0.5, so now it kind of rotates back and forth a little bit like that. And then real quick, I'm just going to go through and add these modifiers to the rest of our text, so go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so now that's finished. I went through and added those modifiers to the rest of the text. So now this is our animation right here. And then this should be good to render out. We can just make sure we have the composition we want. So if you need to move the camera around a little bit to adjust it the way you like, go ahead and do that. So now I'll just make sure that I have a file name for this. So I'll just do text underscore accept, and let's go ahead and render this out. So I'll come up here to render and render animation. Alright, so now that our render's finished here, let's go ahead and close this out, and we can start with our background animation. So I'll go ahead over here to the scene collection and just hide everything. Let's add in a plane and rotate this on the X by 90. I'll bring it up and then scale it to fit our camera view right there. And then now I'm going to import another pattern from that pack, so I'll come up to append, find that pack, and then I'm going to choose this hexagon noise for the background pattern. Choose that, go to material and hexagon noise. I'll come up here to the shading window. Let me close all these real quick. Alright, so let's make sure we have the plane selected, and I'll come to the rendered view. And under these materials, I'll choose the hexagon noise. And if we play through this, you can see that it's already animated, and I already like the way this animation looks, so I'm going to keep it the way it is. But if you wanted to, you can come over here and change some of these settings. change the tiling and you can change, you know, the rotation, things like that. But I am going to come over here and I'm going to add in a mix RGB node. And I'll set that right there and make sure this is set into the factor. And now for these colors, I'm just going to paste in some of the colors that I have on that color palette. So for this, I'll copy that and add that right there. I like the way that looks, and if we wanted to, let's bring this down here and we can enable our text just to see what it's going to look like in the final render. And then you can go ahead and adjust any colors, any settings that you want before you go ahead and render the background image out as well. And then if we come up here to the scene collection, let's open this out a little bit, and then we can enable our render visibility right here. And then everything else except for this background plane and the camera, we can go ahead and disable the render view right there. So if we make a quick render, just to make sure that we only have our background here. And then we should be good to make another render. So come over here to the output properties, and this time I'm going to change this to say background underscore, come up to render and render animation. Alright, so now the background animation's finished rendering out, so I'm going to go ahead and close this and we can go ahead and combine these two now. So if I come up here, I'll go to video editing and open up a video editing workspace. Let me bring this to the first frame here and I'll hit add image sequence. I'll find my folder here. I'll select the background sequence, come down here to frame 250, shift click that, and then I'll add the image strip in. So now we can see that this is the animation in our timeline. And then one more time I'll hit add image sequence, and this time I'll select the text animation. So I'll come down here, shift click to select all, and then add image sequence right there. I'll bring this back to the first frame, drag this up. Alright, so now that that's finished loading in, let's go ahead and hit play, and you can see that this is our final animation. And then now you can go ahead and render these out one more time with whatever file format you want. I think it looks really cool. It's nice and vibrant and flashy. Really easy to do, especially with that pattern pack. And then something else you can do is enable ambient occlusion and screen space reflections to give it more of this like stylized look to it. I think that looks pretty cool as well. And yeah, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, maybe learned something, go ahead and leave a like and consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.